Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari 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 Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Prajajana Ranjana 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 Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava 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 Kunja Bihari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Shri Radha Radhanath ki Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki Srila Giriraj Govardhan Hari ki Srila Prabhupada ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Shri Srimad Gaura Premi. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you all so much for this opportunity. We're reading and discussing today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 17, entitled Maharaj Prithu Becomes Angry at the Earth. And this is text 22. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. So the verses. Prituruvacha vasudhe tvang vadhishyami mashasana paran mukhim bhagang bharhishi ya ringte na tanoti cha no vasu. And the translation is, King Prithu replied to the earthly planet, My dear Earth, you have disobeyed my orders and rulings. In the form of a demigod, you accepted your share of the yagyas we performed, but in return, you have not produced sufficient food grains. For this reason, I must kill you. So you can all repeat after me. Pritur Uvacha Vashudhe Tvang Vadishyami Mashasana Paranmukhim Bhaghang Parhisi Ya Ringte Na Tanoti Cha No Vasu. Line by line. Priturvacha Vasudhe Tvang Vadishyami Mashasana Paran Mukhim Bhagang Barhisi Yavringte Natanoti Cha No Vasu Priturvacha Vasudhe Tvang Vadishyami Mashasana Paran Mukhim Bhagang Barhisi Yavringte Na Tanoti Cha No Vasu. Does anyone want to read? Priturvacha Vasudhe Tvam Vadishyami Mashasana Paran Mukhim Bhagang Barhishya Vrinte Natanoti Chano Vasu Prituruvacha Vasudhe Tvam Vadishyami Mashasana Paran Mukhim Bhagam Bharishya Vrinte Natanoti Chano Vasu Priturvacha Vasudhe Tvam Vadishyami Mashasana Paran Mukhim Bhagam Bharishya Vrinte Natanoti Chano Vasu. Okay, so we'll read word by word. Pritu Vacha. King Pritu replied, Vasudev, my dear earthly planet, Tvang, you, Vadishyami, I shall kill, Mat, my, Shasana, rulings, Parak Mukhim, disobedient to, Bhagam, your share, Barhishi, in the yagya, Ya, who, Vringte, accepts, Na, not, Tanoti, does deliver, Cha, and, Naha, to us, Vasu, produce. Okay, and now the translation. King Prithu replied to the earthly planet, my dear earth, you have disobeyed my orders and rulings. In the form of a demigod, you accepted your share of the yagyas we performed, but in return, you have not produced sufficient food grains. For this reason, I must kill you. Okay, so that translation and purport is by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. So the purport says, the cow-shaped earthly planet submitted that she not only was a woman, but was innocent and sinless as well. Thus she argued that she should not be killed. Besides, she pointed out that, being perfectly religious-minded, the king could not violate the religious principles that forbade killing a woman. In reply, Maharaj Prithu informed her that, first of all, she had disobeyed his orders. This was her first sinful activity. Secondly, he accused her of taking her share of the yagyas, or sacrifices, but not producing sufficient food grains in return. Om Gyanatmirandasya Ginangina Shalakaya Chakshurinmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Pastrati Deshtarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakapatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So I'd like to also take the blessings of all of you, especially Shri Devi Prabhu, so that I can do justice to this class today, as we try to understand a little more deeply the instructions of Maharaj Prithu to the earth planet. So we have to look at these verses in this section very carefully and in the right context, so that we don't misunderstand the actions of Maharaj Prithu. In a way, we could say it looks wrong that he's pursuing Mother Earth, who is a female, and now she's also taken the form of a cow. And of course we know, according to all moral and religious codes, women should not be attacked in this way, and certainly not cows as well. So in this, with these arguments, she was actually pleading with Maharaj Prithu to spare her. So the king responds by saying that it's not that he is pursuing her because she's a woman or because she's a cow, but because she disobeyed her orders as a universal administrator. She's one of the great personalities who has a very important responsibility to all creatures of the earth, not just human beings, all citizens, praja. All are dependent on the earth for food grains, without which they are suffering. The citizens are as much her children as they are the children of the king, right? Both of them being in such positions. So as someone in such a great position of authority, he is addressing her as having abused that authority, as having abused that privilege, because she has taken the yagyas, she's accepted them, but at the same time she has withheld what should come in return for that sacrifice, which is the food grains. And Krishna explains this very nicely in Bhagavad Gita. We know it's a very important verse in chapter 3. Saha yagyaha praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyadvam esha vostva ishtakamadhuk. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yagya or sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation." And so these are the words of the Supreme Lord. The duty of one who is subordinate to the Lord is to carry out his instructions, especially somebody like Mother Earth, who knows her religious duty, as much as she's expecting Maharaj Prithu to know his duty. She knows that she should be carrying out this responsibility to provide food grains for the living beings according to Krishna's words. So this system was given to humankind, that they perform yagya and they achieve whatever they need for the sustenance of life. Because even though we know that the ultimate aim is spiritual life, spiritual emancipation, and eventually freedom from the cycle of birth and death, one must have at least the basic necessities of the human body catered for. We could say in another way, it's very difficult in the beginning, especially in the beginning, it's very difficult to focus on listening attentively or chanting or hearing attentively if one has an empty stomach, or if one doesn't have a roof over one's head and one has so many anxieties. This is something that we must be aware of. This is a very interesting thing, that if we look at the astrology, for example, the way the houses are actually grouped, it's according to the 4 goals of human life: Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Dharma is religiosity, Artha is economic development, Kama is sense enjoyment, and eventually Moksha is liberation. So all of the goals of the Vedic teachings are usually adjusted according to these 4 descriptions, and so apparently are the astrological houses in Vedic astrology. So if we look at the moksha houses, the beginning out of the 12 houses are divided into 4 according to Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. And out of the 3 houses that are attributed to moksha, where you begin is actually the 4th house of home. Home is where you begin your journey towards moksha. It's very interesting, because when we think about moksha liberation, it means leaving home. But actually it's described that it's because we need to be satisfied at least with our basic necessities of life, which are represented by a home, before we can actually engage in devotional activities or spiritual activities with a clear mind, or a clear mind as much as possible. So of course this doesn't mean that we must give our full attention to home, family, or we could say the materialistic pursuit of these goals. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advises that we be satisfied that we can attain the basic necessities of this area of life, and then we leave the rest of the time for spiritual activities. So we must have what we need to keep body and soul together, basically, as Srila Prabhupada would say. But more than that, we shouldn't endeavor for, right? Because this is what distracts us from spiritual life. Of course, it is a bit difficult for us to know what's too much, right, or what is enough. And this is why we have the guidance of spiritual teachers, senior personalities in spiritual life, the scriptures, and so on, to help us until we develop that sufficient intelligence to know that this is exactly what I need, and more than that I should not try to endeavor for, and then I can just focus now on spiritual activities. And this is important for us in the beginning especially. So basically we need balance. We need balance for ourselves. So as far as the earth goes, she has a very important role to play in this, because she is providing those food grains which you're going to sustain yourself with so that you can engage in devotional service. That's her role. And she can't just give up that role as she pleases, because that role has been given to her by the Lord. Right? In general, the demigods are very great, pious beings, right? Souls like us, actually, who have been advanced so much that they can be trusted to take on the role of running the universe as their service to Krishna. And because of their great piety, great accumulated piety, because of them being situated very solidly in the mode of goodness, they usually do this job very well. But sometimes we know, because the modes are always competing with each other, Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita, sometimes even the demigods, they come under the influence of the lower modes. They come under the influence of passion and ignorance. And we know the most famous example was King Indra, usually situated in goodness, but then he was so angry that Krishna had stopped his sacrifice that he descended into passion and ignorance very quickly, and he tried to destroy Vrindavan. He tried to destroy Krishna. And so this is a little an aside, right? That we should be careful that even if we're situated on the platform of goodness, we can still fall. This is the reason why it's not a stable position in the material world. We should always be endeavoring for transcendental goodness. So, the earth, on the other hand, she's a little special. We'll come to this point in a while, because she's actually not just like one of the demigods, but she's also the energy of the Lord. But at least for this point amongst the demigods, if they're not doing this job that they've been given, the service that they've been given, right, on behalf of the Lord, then in one way we can understand the Lord's very strong actions here, one way that we can all understand a little better. It's like your modern day administrators, your modern day politicians, who take the position and take the privileges of the position and then don't deliver the services. And we all get very upset with that. this is sort of like what the earth has done. And she's taken the privilege of being in charge of delivering these necessities of life, of administering the earth for the Lord, and then she's not delivering on it. So it's very serious because the citizens are starving. Right? They're at the point of, their lives are being threatened. Like, we all know how much we wish that leaders would be held accountable if they act in the same way, right? We all want that if they can put so many lives at risk by being a little, or by being very negligent, that they should be punished. So Lord is actually doing that. So he's not actually out of bounds, or Maharaj Prithu is actually doing that. He's not out of bounds then. Right? It's just that we can take it out of context about, again, Mother Earth being in the form of a woman and being in form of a cow. And this can affect our perspective on this whole situation. Shri Shri Radharanath ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Srila Giraj Govardhan Hari ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. So Maharaj Prithu just wants to compel her to do the right thing. That's what he wants her to do. But instead she's sort of like justifying, well, she will come to justifying what she's done. And she's taken this very pitiable position for him to not chastise her. So we see that actually towards the end of this chapter, she'll even say that she was overcome by ignorance, even though she is his dear consort. Right? She says, "My dear Lord, I am also the creation of one of your energies composed of the three modes of material nature. Consequently, I am bewildered by your activities. Even the activities of your devotees cannot be understood, and what to speak of your pastimes. Thus, everything appears to us to be contradictory and wonderful." Okay? So, she is indeed the Lord's consort, the Lord's energy, but sometimes she gets a little bewildered. Right? She's in that position, and she forgets his nature, his transcendental nature, and she may also, like King Indra, she may defy him a little bit. And we also have the problem of misunderstanding the Lord's internal natures when we try to use them for our own ends, for our own pleasure or enjoyment. And that's how the Lord's internal energy then becomes the external energy. Essentially, the energies are the same. Right? The Lord's energy is the same to him. It's like, Prabhupada gives us a very nice example to explain it. It's like electrical energy. It comes from a great power source, right? The power station. The energy is the same to the engineer that works on it, but to the end user, we're either using that energy for heating or for cooling, and therefore the energy seems different. And in the same way, because we want to use the Lord's internal energies, internal potency for ourselves, then she transforms, or she becomes the external energy to us. With the consequence, of course, that we don't get the same benefits, spiritual benefits, as we would from the internal energy. And that's because we don't want the spiritual benefits. Right? So it's not that this is unfair. We want what is for our own enjoyment, and that is automatically material. Only when we approach the internal energy to please Krishna do we get spiritual results, right? Spiritual gains. So we know there's a very famous example in that regard as well with the great demon Ravan. He didn't approach Sita, the Lord's internal potency, for her help in serving Lord Ram, the way we approach the Lord's internal potency, Srimati Radharani, to worship the Lord. He wanted her for himself. So what did he get in return? He got an illusory representation of her. He got an illusory representation. We call Maya Sita, also known as Vedavati. That's another long pastime. But this is what happens to us as well. We get the Maya version of the internal potency. Right? We get Maya. And we were discussing with His Grace Raghunath Bhatta Prabhu. He was actually explaining, even in Bhagavatam it's described, I actually forget the reference, that when one approaches Lakshmi Devi in particular, we know that Lakshmi Devi and Bhudevi are the consorts of the Lord Narayan. When we approach her for material things, it's not actually granted by her. She's only exclusively for the devotional service of Krishna. Through Durga Devi, the external representation, we actually get the financial reward. And she's actually the one who's responsible for this. So we can understand in the same way that the people are approaching Bhumi Devi, the earth, also for their own sustenance, for their own purposes. And she'll actually explain to the Lord in some justification, mitigation of her actions later, that actually these people are not good. They're not good citizens. Right? They just want to enjoy these things, and they're not behaving in a very appropriate manner. So this is why I've withheld it. And this is the problem when we approach the demigods for material things, because they don't actually have to have compassion for us. They'll just withhold and grant as our karma says. It's related to the karma mimamsa philosophy, where you perform an action, you get a reaction. Krishna also explains this in the same pastime with when King Indra, when he stopped King Indra's sacrifice, he told his father, there is no need to actually worry about worshipping Indra, because whatever you're going to get, whatever he's supposed to give you, he's going to give you anyway, because he's bound by your karma, by whatever actions you have performed. So you've performed a certain action, you would, in relation to getting rainfall, for example. So by the karma of that, Indra is compelled to give you rain. You don't have to perform a separate sacrifice for him. You don't have to do anything further than that. He will just provide what you need. Of course, the people of Vrindavan were different. They were transcendental personalities, so everything would be provided in abundance for them, because they're using it for Krishna's service. But in this case, of course, the people are not behaving in such a way. They're not even very pious according to the earth, not even on the mode of goodness. So they're not getting the results. They're not getting the rainfall. But at the same time, because they approached he who is above the gods, above the demigods, he who can break the rules. Because they approached King Prithu, he has approached the earth on their behalf, despite their sinful natures. They've taken shelter of him. And this is a very important point, because we remember that Krishna promises in Bhagavad Gita that whoever takes shelter of him, even if they're of low birth, he will give them his grace and mercy. So even if these persons have acted in an inappropriate way, that the earth is not prepared, and even with her responsibility, even with her motherly nature, even being in the mode of goodness, even if she refuses to assist them, the Lord has still taken that they have surrendered to him, and he's taken up their cause. Right? So he has approached the earth in this way, on behalf of these suffering souls. So this is his great mercy. And this is why we should always, or we're always advised to surrender to the Lord directly, even if we have something material that we want. Chaturvidha bhijante mam. Even if you want something, you have a material necessity, even if there's something that you need, still approach the Lord. It's not ideal, but by engaging all of that which you receive from him in his service, you'll become purified of those desires, and you'll be able to attain him. So when Lord Chaitanya is approached by Ramananda Rai, and they have their first discussions on the banks of the Godavari River, these points come up, because Lord Chaitanya wants to direct the discussion, right, for the benefit of all of us, towards what is the highest duty of a human being. What is going to be of the ultimate benefit of the human being? Similar to the questions asked at the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Ramananda Rai answers in the conventional way, which we're all used to, which is this karma mimamsa. You perform your actions dutifully, right? Whatever you have been born into this life to do, right? Your duty to your family, your country, the world. And in return, you will get some reward, and you can use that to do some good back in return, some charity, some sacrifice for your family, and so on. And you live nicely in this way. Right? This is basically Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Eventually, of course, building up to liberation. And this is a conventional idea of what the Vedas are teaching, what Sanatana Dharma is about, what Hinduism is about. And it's not wrong in the sense that everyone is at different levels of spiritual understanding. So for many people, this is the level that they're at, and the Lord is very merciful that He gives them an opportunity to make some advancement from that position beyond. But remember that Lord Chaitanya didn't ask Ramananda Rai about any path. He asked for the ultimate goal of human life. So if anyone thinks that's the ultimate goal of human life, they're wrong. It's a stepping stone to getting there. Karma Mimamsa. It's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is, of course, pure devotional service. But Lord Chaitanya is going to build up Ramananda Rai to that point. So Lord Chaitanya tells Ramananda Rai, no, this is not good. It's actually not good. And Srila Prabhupada explains that if we engage in these kind of activities, just performing your duty, expecting something in return, we know you're only going to attain temporary rewards that are not going to have any real benefit for one in terms of becoming free of the cycle of birth and death and attaining to the spiritual realm. So it's not worth focusing one's life, one's precious short life, on only these things, and only thinking about the next 20 years or 30 years or 50 years in front of us, and not wondering about the whole of eternity that will stretch out before us. So because of that, Lord Chaitanya wants Ramananda Rai to get to the most important, so he tells him no. Right? And we see that it has a consequence when we take religion or spiritual life or these kinds of activities to just be transactional in this way. I do something, I get something in return. The problem obviously is when we don't get something in return, then we lose our faith. That's what could happen to these persons if they didn't get the grain from the earth, right? And Maharaj Prithu didn't intercede on their behalf. But we see that happening very often. There's no real loyalty here. In fact, Srila Prabhupada says it's a little insulting to the supreme power, the creator behind it, because it's almost like one is trying to impel that power to give you what you want. That I've done this, I've done my job well, or I've done the sacrifice. Now you have to do what I tell you to do, or what I want you to do, and what I need from you. And this is not good, because we can understand that it affects our natures. Right? It creates that kind of nature of always expecting something in return, and then getting upset, angry, rejecting the path, rejecting people, rejecting anything that doesn't do what we want it to do, right? Or give us what we want it to give us. So basically it just furthers the false ego. This kind of religious nature or religious behavior is actually worse for us than anything else. It's just entangling us in the false ego and in this material world. So Lord Chaitanya just rejects it outright, and he tells Ramananda Rai, tell me something more, tell me something better than this. So then Ramananda Rai, he quotes something very nice, which we would all think is very nice. Right? Krishna saying in Bhagavad Gita that whatever you do, whatever you give away, whatever austerities, sacrifices and austerities perform, do that as an offering to me. That's a nice verse. That's a bit better than Karma Mimamsa. Right? But Lord Chaitanya rejects it. He rejects it. He says, no, this is not the ultimate. So then we may ask, how can he reject Krishna's words? Why are Krishna's words not the ultimate? It's because this important point that we made just now about surrender. Surrender is not involved when we're just doing as Krishna says in that verse. when you do the austerities, the sacrifices, the charity as an offering to me. There's no mention of surrender there. It's not like how very clearly at the end Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharma Parityaja. Also, when he says man mana bhava mad bhakto, because at the end, mami vaishyasi yuktvaevam atmana matparayanaha. Atmana matparayanaha, with your love, give yourself to me, right? Absorb yourself in me. Very different instruction from just do this, this and this for me. So if we do it for the Lord, that's fine. But there's still some motivation, there's no surrender there. And the consequence is that we're not going to get the full spiritual results, right? Like we said, it needs to be only for the Lord for us to get a spiritual result. And without that surrender, we're not going to get free of our sins. Krishna promises Arjuna that if you surrender to me, I will deliver for you from all your sinful reactions. These persons were delivered from their sinful reactions. They surrendered to the Lord. So much so that he took up their cause and he chased after his own consort to kill her. That's the Lord and his devotees. You surrender to him, there's nothing that you have to fear. Right? So Krishna keeps his promise, Masuchaha. So Lord Chaitanya therefore rejects us just doing everything for Krishna without surrendering. Without surrendering. It's such an important point. So Ramananda Rai then goes a little around the topic, speaks about reincarnation, of renunciation. Lord Chaitanya rejects that as well. And then he comes back to, okay, performing all activities for Krishna without motivation, right? No, not mixed karma mishra bhakti, jnana mishra bhakti, just for Krishna, and developing one's relationship with him. Then Lord Chaitanya says, okay, now you're on the right track. And then from there the Lord develops the whole concepts further, and basically how one can be engaged in the Lord's service in the 5 rasas. So this is a very important discussion to help us understand how exactly these important topics are to be understood. Okay, so in this way we can see that, or we can understand that this quality of surrender is so important. Right? It's so important. We were discussing the 26 qualities of a devotee, and Raghunath Prabhu was saying that Giraj Maharaj made a very nice point, that out of all these 26 qualities, if you just develop the quality of surrender, you'll get all the other good qualities. That's it. Just surrender everything to Krishna. Don't worry about separately developing. 26 qualities is a lot. Usually we get a bit overwhelmed when we look through the list. I don't know, I start going past 5 and I'm like, I don't think I can get much further than that. But this surrender is so powerful that all good qualities actually will automatically come after that. Right? And we can also understand the importance in us appealing to the Lord in surrender from one analogy. Sri Prabhupada gives us very nice analogies in this regard. Someone's at the beach, right? Or 2 people are at the beach, and one is drowning and the other one is just swimming along very comfortably. How do you know which one is drowning? Which one is swimming? They're both in the water. The one is screaming, throwing his hands up in the air, he or she, right? Calling for help. Right? I'm drowning, I can't, I'm not. But you'll go and help the one who is asking for help. You're not going to try and rescue someone who's enjoying their swim. So in the same way, who does the Lord rescue? If you're swimming along, not happily, but if you're like, I've got this, right, in the material world, and you just, you're doing your thing and you're surrounding yourself like we do with all kinds of ways to protect ourselves or prop ourselves up. You've got good contacts, connections, you have insurance policies, you have all kinds of stuff to build yourself up, every danger and so on. And when you're in a more protected situation like that, you're actually less likely to make any progress towards surrender. And that's the reason why Queen Kunti speaks so feelingly about this, that you are the possession of the materially impoverished. You belong to those who have nothing else, because then they only actually have you. If your cup is full, you can't fill it anymore. If your arms are full, you can't add anything more. But if you have nothing, then you have space for Krishna in your life or in your arms, in your heart. So this is the reason why every now and again. And another interesting thing from astrology, you'll see how the planets actually conspire it's almost like a set period in your life where you'll go through difficulties. Everyone has to do it. It's very interesting if you look at it. Right? Like the famous one is the Saturn return, when everybody's going through like 27, 28, 29, right? It's just like, for some people, your whole life just falls apart, literally. It's a thing. It really is a thing. And this is because if this isn't happening, then you'll just be comfortable. You'll just be swimming along, and you'll never actually have that opportunity to question, why do these things happen? What can I do to stop them from happening? What can I do to stop them permanently from happening? That is eventually the point that we're supposed to get at. So there's no point in this material world, even if you just look at it from that one perspective, just the astrology. There is just no point trying to be happy. Even if you don't want to believe in God, the planets are just going to give it to you. You're not really going to have a choice. And until you get it, that this world is just not your place, and not your permanent home. So we need to use the opportunities of the challenges, the distaste, the disgust even that we have with the material world, the things that happen, to impel us towards surrender to the Lord. And again, we see that He doesn't even consider what we are like. Already He promised in Bhagavad Gita, you're coming to me even with, generally if somebody comes to you with motivation, you're not very impressed with them. It's personal. Always comes to me when they want something. But Krishna's okay with it. Even if you're distressed, inquisitive, in need of money and wealth, it's okay. Just come to me. Just come to me. This is love. This is unconditional love. And this is Krishna. So even if we are sinful, right, low-born, and so on, still He promises He will deliver us. And so this is what He's done to these people. Right? He's taken up their cause. He's punishing the earth for them. And again, we'll read how she sort of explains to him that I was just doing my job. Right? These are not good people. They didn't actually deserve all this bounty. But she forgot something. Right? And she says it here. I actually got bewildered by your nature and your pastimes. And Krishna says in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that He does put the great demigods and sages into illusion. Not that He does it on purpose, but He's just so amazing that even they get confused sometimes. Particularly again if they're affected by the modes. Right? Lord Brahma, Indra, the Mother Earth she's in very exalted company in terms of being bewildered. Some very great personalities have admitted that from time to time. But it's because particularly this nature of the Lord, Bhakta Vatsala, that he just drops everything for His devotee. He just accepts anybody who surrenders to Him, no matter what they were, no matter what the earth planet will speak in the next chapter about whatever these people were doing. But the Lord just took it up, took their cause up out of His extraordinary and deep affection for anyone who surrenders to Him. And so she says, this is bewildering. Okay. So it's very important for us to therefore understand that when we approach the demigods, they're acting as impartial administrators. There's no personal relationship for them to intercede on our behalf the way the Lord has interceded here. They're not going to do that. And we are also at fault if we think about it, because I know in conventional Hinduism, with all due respect, we mostly only know about the demigods in terms of what they give. You know Lakshmi as the goddess of wealth, and you know Ganesha as the god of who removes obstacles, and you know Saraswati, Mother Saraswati, that she gives knowledge. Nobody knows anything more about them than that. They're persons, just as much as, even if you're looking at it from an impersonalist perspective, there are those who will say that, okay, they just represent the Brahman. Even if we take that argument, okay, they represent the Brahman. People also say we represent the Brahman, but they still get to know us. They still get to know each other. Okay? Why is it that with the demigods we just want to know what they give us, which day we must do that prayer, how we must do it, and then we must just get what we want in return? That's all. Can you imagine treating someone like that? So this is actually the problem. Again, this is why it descends into transactions. And then when we don't get what we want from them, not because they have a particular problem, although like we said, they're just doing their jobs, but because your karma didn't allow it. They weren't giving you anything else that they gave you before because they were being kind to you. It was literally just because of your karma. But now if your karma doesn't allow it, then you get upset with them. And again, you reject them, you reject the teachings. So this is not the way that we develop ourselves, not just even spiritually, but even morally, even in a sense of goodness, right? Having these kind of ideas about people, about the gods, about demigods, about religion. Right? We must come at least to the level of goodness, not always just demanding things, right, in return. And then eventually through devotional practices which are designed to get us out of that mentality, we'll become purified of all these material desires and we'll become selfless. It's a very exalted thing to become selfless, even if you're not moving in spiritual circles. Right? This is, even outside in the material world, right? A selfless person is considered in a very respectful way. So in all circumstances and for all persons, taking to devotional service and getting rid of that false ego and this idea of what religion is about, just give me, all kinds of other mentalities that go along with it. Devotional service will purify everybody, anybody, and eventually, most importantly, get one out of the cycle of birth and death and out of all these sufferings perpetually. Okay. So I think we'll stop here. Thank you all so much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Any comments or questions or corrections? Probably you want to add anything?
Yes, yesterday also was elaborated very nicely about what Prithu Maharaj wanted to do. So at present, the way we are conducting our devotional life, is it that important for us also to be able to get opportunities to serve Bhumi Devi and understand the value? Because Prabhupada, when he started the movement, he also wanted to form communities where devotees will be able to connect and relate to Mother Earth and cow, etc., etc. So I think this will help to build our understanding of Krishna consciousness better and make it solid. What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. I agree totally with that, Prabhu, because the reality is that if we're in an artificial lifestyle, which we are now, it infiltrates into our consciousness eventually, everything. And even physically, it becomes, I guess, at least by Ayurvedic perspectives, we become so much more prone to diseases when we're not producing our own food and eating it fresh. If you think about it, there's almost no pran, there's no life in anything we're consuming right now, because almost everything is refrigerated for such a long time before it gets to us, even if it's apparently fresh fruit or vegetable. And everything else is coming out of a bag, a freezer, a box, and it's a can. So certainly physically we're not being nourished by it, but also our consciousness is not being nourished by it as well. And this also affects our spiritual life. Like we were saying, you need to have these certain physical requirements met. It doesn't hold us back from spiritual life, but it makes it harder. And therefore that whole teaching that the farms, the natural environment, it's all in the mode of goodness. When you situate in the mode of goodness, it just makes spiritual life easier. Anyone and everyone who's living this artificial life will understand that. I mean, everyone who walks in here already feels a sense of relief because this is the closest that one can get to that environment. But if you have the opportunity to even visit a farm or somewhere natural, you feel that same kind of peace. So I think it's something that we have to work towards. We have we've spent obviously a long time developing ISKCON up to this point, like in so many ways. But this is one thing that must be taken up very seriously now and developed further. And there'll become more of a need for it because maybe 30, 40 years ago, the produce and stuff we were getting was still relatively safe from things like pesticides and GMOs and things. But now everything is contaminated. Even the seeds. You think you can grow things at home and it's better because it doesn't have the chemicals, but the seeds are modified. So it's going to become a necessity. And of course, cow protection is without question like one of our highest priorities and things. So I agree that it's just necessary. And I pray that we'll be making big steps towards that in the future. Thank you, Prabhu. Any other comments or questions? Okay, if there's not, thank you all so much. Shri Prabhupada ki, Hare Krishna.